Hi, welcome to my channel. If you hear the thunder in the distance, I apologize, it's storming. But I wanted to film a wrap up for all the books that I read for Summerween. And if you're not familiar, Summerween is a readathon hosted by Gabby Reads, and I will link it in the description below, but it's over now, but you can always catch it next time. So these are all the books that I read for Summerween. And I will say a lot of these, so Gabby has prompts, and a lot of these I just picked a book that happened to be available as an ebook or an audiobook from the library that seemed to fit a prompt, and wanted to only be horror and thriller. And it turned out to be very on theme. So let me just talk about the first one and you'll see what I mean. So the first one is called Small Town Horror by Ronald Mouthy. And actually, I'm not gonna lie, I finished this the day before the readathon started because I was off work for July 4th. So I decided to just go on and read it. And I'm still gonna talk about it here because I did choose it for the readathon, even though I ended up finishing it before the readathon. So it's just like a little special bonus. And this book, again, I picked it because one of the prompts is read a book with a sky on the cover, and the cover had a sky on it. But this book was set on the 4th of July. Well, in part, it followed multiple days, but one of the days was the 4th of July. And I was like, wow, okay, I picked the perfect book just because it has a sky on the cover to read for Summerween. It's summer horror and on the 4th of July. So anyway, let's see, let me actually go into what it's about. So it's about this man who is married and his wife is pregnant. He has a lot of anxiety about the upcoming birth of the baby. And he gets a call from his friend. He's a lawyer as well. So he gets a call from his friend that he might be in some trouble back at his hometown. So he goes back to his hometown and meets up with his old friends. And honestly, none of his old friends are doing very well. Yeah, there's a lot going on in his hometown, and particularly these old friends, and they seem to share a secret that nobody wants to talk about, but seems to have really shaped how the rest of their lives turned out. And this event that I'm not going to say because it's a spoiler occurred on the 4th of July, so I picked very well on this one. Yeah, so this was a really good summer read. The plot was a little bit slow. I kind of felt like, and I don't mind, I never mind, honestly don't usually mind a small plot, or slow plot, I did not mind, because I was just having a good time floating on my raft in the pool reading, so I wasn't in a hurry to get to anywhere. So I want to say like maybe the first 70% of the book is pretty slow, but then, hold on, I have to do math, the last 30% was fast and active. And it did not end how I expected, but I think the ending worked really well for the book. So I think that's a good one. I mean, you might want to wait till next 4th of July to read it, or read it now while it's still really hot outside and you want to read a horror that's set in the summer. So yeah, that was a good one. All right, next I have Gray Dog by Elliot Gish. This one has been on my TBR for a while. And I used the prompt read a book in the dark for this one because I read the ebook, so I would read it at night before I went to sleep in my bed in the dark. I did finish it in the day, but I read most of it at night, so we're gonna count it. This book was on my TBR. I had no idea what it was about. I did not remember. I just know I'd added it, and it was available from the library when I was checking out books for Summerween, so I checked it out. And I didn't really know where it was going. So it is a historical fiction, and it is told through diary entries. And I actually almost DNF'd a couple of times because I'm not a big fan of historical fiction, for one. I'm not a big fan of stuff told in diary entries, for two. So I was like interested, but I wasn't that interested. But I'm really glad I kept up because it's kind of like small town horror. It's a bit slow, but the payoff is there. So this is about a woman in the early 1900s, and she is a teacher, and we know that something big and bad happened before the start of the book, and she went through some sort of disgrace. And she is now at this new teaching post where she's trying to hide her past, but trying to just, survive as a human, as a woman in a time where people are not very respectful of her, and they're not very respectful of her teaching methods. They want her to just teach the kids reading, writing, arithmetic. And they're like, well, these kids aren't going to college. These kids are just going to be farm kids or farmers. The girls are just going to marry. There's no point in teaching them, anything beyond the basics. So she, struggles with that. And there's a mysterious woman that she feels kind of drawn to. And the woman that had her post before her she feels like she left under some kind of mysterious circumstances. So she's trying to put everything together, and it was very good. It's definitely, I've heard it as like a good for her kind of book, and in a way, yeah. It's witchy. I don't think that's a huge spoiler. I think you kind of know going into it that it might be witchy. It reminded me sort of the Brahm book. What is that? With Slewfoot. Not even really, but kind of, because it was, you know, the same sort of. It's similar. I don't want to spoil anything because I went into it totally blind. So I don't think other people need it spoiled for them. But I will say, if you're really bored and you're like halfway through, keep going a little bit. And then if you're still bored, like 75% of the way through, I guess you can stop, but you'll probably want to finish by the time you get there. So, all right. Next, I have, this is a new favorite of mine, for sure, Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. And this was for the prompt, read a book that you've owned for more than a year. I bought this several years ago knowing that I was going to love it, and I've just, for some reason, put off reading it, so I decided to read it for this. And you guys, this is definitely, I mean, it's gonna be in my favorites of the year, if not the favorite. It's probably the favorite so far in the year. But yeah, anyway, so I think I've seen this book a lot talked about on like YouTube and stuff. So you might know what it's about already, but it's about a woman whose 11-year-old son dies, a woman and her husband, their 11-year-old son dies, and she decides to cut out a piece of his lung because she wants to keep a part of him with her. So she does. She moves back to Mexico where she's from. She takes the lung with her, and she hears this story about how there's this legend in this other small town in Mexico where if you take a piece of your loved one and you feed it, that it will grow, and not into the same person that died, but grow into, in the story it grew into a man that this woman married or whatever. And so she does this, and the lung does start to grow, but it's not really growing into a person. It's growing into a monster whom they name Monstrilio, like the title. And it was so good. I think this is his first book, and I want to read everything he ever writes. And it is horror, like technically, but it's really a lot more literary. Like it's so much more about the family dynamic, the relationships, sort of what it means to be monstrous, what grief, the immensity of grief, especially losing a child. That's really what the book is about. The monster stuff is just how these topics are talked about. So don't go into it expecting like a horror fest, because it's really not that. But it was so good. Like, oh, that was so good. Yeah, let me just move on because I can keep talking about Monstrilio forever. And it really wasn't what I expected, even though I've had this book for over a year and I've kind of like flipped through it. I thought it would be a lot more straightforward than it ended up being, and it's so good. Anyway, okay. Again, sorry for the thunder. All right, next, the prompt was read a novella, manga, or listen to a spooky audiobook. So for this one, I chose spooky audiobook, and I chose Deadly Animals by Marie Tierney. I thought this was going to be horror. It really wasn't horror. This is more of a thriller. Well, yeah, it's a thriller. So it's about this unusual young girl. I think she's 14. Her name's Ava. And she is very into science and very interested in like biology. And she's very strange. And she has what she calls like a body farm. So like when she knows that animals died by a roadkill or she just found them dead, she will like move them or like map out, she didn't move them, I don't think, she like mapped out where they were. So she could go back and examine them during the decomposition. Okay, sorry, one of my dogs doesn't like thunder, so she's gonna bark at it. Anyway, so, but one night when she's going to her little body farm, she finds the body of a human that wasn't there before. And so she, contacts police and she gets involved in the investigation, and it's multiple perspectives. So we have her perspective, we get a few other younger kid perspectives, and then the perspectives of the police officers. It's all third person, but it's limited to different perspectives. Okay, Ziva, that's enough. All right. It's okay, Ziva. All right, and let me talk about, this is the last book I was going to talk about. And this one was a replacement for Read a Book with the Sky on the Cover for Small Town Horror by Ronald Malfi. I read this one instead since I'd read that one before Summerween started. And that was The Drowning House by Cherie Priest. So this is a book about, it's sort of dual timeline. Oh, and it takes place on the 4th of July. Again, I just picked it because it had a sky on the cover. And took place on the 4th of July. I don't know how, but it worked. So, well, part of it took place on the 4th of July, not the whole thing again. But anyway, so this book was about, it was also multiple perspectives. So this house shows up on the beach out of nowhere. And there's a woman, an older lady, she's in her 90s, and she absolutely panics seeing this house. And she has, I guess, like a heart attack and dies. And her grandson, Simon, is there, and he says that she died of fright. And he contacts his friend from childhood. And so his friend from childhood decides to come, like, check it out. And she also calls their other friend from childhood, Leo, to come check it out with her. So they both show up at this house. Simon is gone. He's nowhere to be found. And they have to figure out exactly what's going on, why this house showed up out of nowhere. And they learn a lot of secrets that the grandmother had, that other people are keeping. Not really as many secrets that Simon himself is keeping, because he's also kind of unaware of everything that's going on. And it was interesting. I think it's her debut. I may be totally wrong. Don't quote me on that. I don't think it's her debut, but maybe it is. I don't know. I liked it though, and it wasn't my favorite of the ones that I read for Summerween, but I thought it was like a solid read. Yeah. And again, it took place in the summer, so it's a good time to read it. And let me do another honorable mention that I only read half of during Summerween, and I still need to finish it. Hold on, it's over here. All right. I was supposed to read this for the read a horror or thriller prompt, but I didn't finish it, but I read half of it, and it's When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This is another one that I think you should go into blind, and I don't know everything that's going to happen because I'm only like right here, but so I'm not going to tell too much, but I'll just tell sort of what the synopsis tells. So there's this woman, she works at this diner, she's a wannabe actress, but like things aren't really working out for her. She goes home after her shift and finds this little boy, like this 5-year-old boy who's terrified, absolutely terrified. And then this wolf-like creature shows up, and people think it's like a rabid bear, and it like kills people. And so she takes the little boy and escapes. And so now where I am, she's just like on the road with this boy. What it originally seems like the book is about at the beginning, it is not really about. Well, in a way, I mean, it is, but there's like so much more going on, and there's a lot going on. And I really like it, and I like the surprise that I felt when I was like, whoa, this is not just like a werewolf story. There's more. This is intense. This is good. Like actually kind of, well, if I say that, you're going to get the totally wrong idea. I was going to say it's kind of more like the X-Files, except without aliens. There could still be aliens. There's not yet. But anyway, it's sort of definitely more of like a sci-fi kind of thing going on than just a traditional monster. And that's all I'm going to say, because again, I don't think you should know that. You should just know, yeah, it's a werewolf book. And you're going to be surprised. And hopefully I'll continue to enjoy it as I finish it. But yeah, I like the characters. I like kids in books. I like a child narrator, and he does it's all third person, but we do get his perspective at times. And it's really well done. Kids can be hard to write. Kids can be poorly done in books. They can be like overly cute or like overly annoying, but he really strikes the right balance. He's not too cute, but he is annoying at times because he's a child. He's a 5-year-old. He just feels like a real child. So yeah, really enjoying this one, and hopefully I will finish it today, and that'll really wrap up my Summerween, even though it ended yesterday. But thanks so much for watching. Did you read anything for Summerween, or do you have any summer horror recommendations for the rest of my summer? Let me know. Thanks. Bye.